Welcome, and today in this video I'd like to start something which is a bit of an experiment. I do a few experience from time to time, and it will concern our wobbly friend over here, which is a Westclock's Good Morning. I think it's Good Morning, yeah, it's Good Morning, and this is the one with the sort of, I don't know, mid-century kind of dial. But I think these are only made for a couple of years, probably 68 to 1970 or something. Based on my other ones, I have a one from before and one which is probably dating afterwards, and they both have a different dial. So this is like an intermediate dial. You don't see many of these at all, especially the plain dial ones, but this is a luminous one. And yeah, it's sort of the end of quality in terms of Westclocks. It doesn't have any. I don't think it has any plastic parts in it, because I'm going to have to open it up in a second anyway. This is completely unserviced and it does not run, and it's got a wobbly base. So the experiment I'd like to do is, first of all, I'd like to try and sort this base out. But another thing I'd like to do is I'd like to make an alteration to this clock, a mechanical alteration, because these movements are very basic and they are fitted with a standard continuous alarm. They're good reliable movements when you get them working. They're not very fun to service because they're intricate and they have a glued in hairspring, but if you've seen my Woody Woodpecker series, then you might know that I use red nail varnish to sort that out, so there's not really an issue with that anymore, because that worked really well. As we speak, the Woody Woodpecker clock is ticking away on the shelf for the first time in a while, and I've also done something to that which you haven't seen in the video. I've put it in a different case, and I'll show you that in the future. Yeah, because here is the old one, and just for maybe a temporary adjustment, I've put it inside it's a blue case, alright? It's exactly the same shape, same style, same company that made it and everything. It's just blue, but it's in much better condition. It looks great, but it's not original. So I've left the cream one hanging around because I just had that blue case spare, and I'll bring it up in a future video because it's really no effort at all to switch it back to the original. If you guys think that maybe I probably shouldn't have done that for originality's sake. Anyway, what I'd like to do to this is I'd like to make this a repeater. And you might think, hang on a minute, you can't do that. How can you possibly make this into a repeater? Well, after this, I think they were still doing it around this time, but the Westclock's Big Bens Style 8s around this time, 1970, had a different movement in them. And they had a movement which had an extra bit bolted to the top of it, which had the repeating function and also had a second winder. That's where the two key Big Bens came from. They're probably from 1964 to maybe a bit earlier than 70, probably about 68. But anyway, those were the movements that were in there. But they were much larger, even though they're based on the same thing. However, at some point later on, probably in the early 70s, they made it so they could have a Big Ben repeater using the same movement, basically, same size as the normal Baby Ben one. But they kept the repeater function only for the Big Ben repeaters, because the Big Ben repeaters they seem to be the only Big Bens around here. All the Big Bens are repeaters, as far as I know. As far as the ones I found, anyway. And that gives us a interesting situation where, if we open this up, which I will just do now, we might be able to, with, what was that, a bit of worm or something? With very minimal effort, or not minimal effort, but minimal collateral damage, let's say, or obstruction, or whatever the word is, convert this into a repeating alarm and add a bit of a function to it. Because I do like these clocks, and because I have the chance, I'd like to experiment with converting a non-repeating alarm into a repeating alarm. And the parts I will need are few, but I have them all here. Here, I'll just bend this down a little bit. So to make this into a repeater, these are the parts I will need. And these come out of a very late movement where they, after they had worked out how to make the small one into a repeater. I took my only example of one of those to parts because the hairspring was incorrect and it would run too fast because the hairspring itself was too thick. And therefore the movement's pretty much useless because it didn't have a case to go into anyway. But I salvaged these parts because I keep all the parts in this Westcrox tub. We have a wheel here with some extra teeth on it, which is the repeat cam, which controls the periods of repeating. We have this little plastic piece here, which is basically the repeat lever, and that goes in there and it follows the cam and causes the hammer to move or not. And this is the hammer itself, and it has an extra bit on it which is there. That little triangle piece is the bit that engages with the repeat lever, and for some reason this is seized up. I wonder if I can unseize it. I think these should be able to just flop around. I'll do that another time. This series will be mostly off camera, which I do from time to time, because the main part of it is just demonstrating the fact that it might be possible. So let's take the wrist movement out here. And this has the top button on it. There we go. And there's the bell inside. Now, there is a little bit of a complication we are faced with, which I've already overcome. Oops. And that is, this plate is of an older design which doesn't support a repeater. However, the movement which I've taken to bits, the plates are okay. So what I've done is I have cleaned up the front plate. This is the back plate actually. I've cleaned up the back plate of the movement, so I can use it in this one. So we'll have the front plate, the original front plate, but the back plate off the later one. And the main difference here is you can see this hole. See that big round hole? That is where the repeat lever pokes through, and it needs that so it can have the spring, and also this little bit on here where my thumbnail is. That's where the spring for the repeat lever is. So I can't really use this existing plate if I want to make this into a repeater. I will reuse this. Oh no, I can't reuse the hammer because it doesn't have the cam on it. But I'll try and unseize this hammer at some point, probably with some penetrating fluid. But as you can see, this should work once it's serviced. It's very dirty. I'll do the service off camera because I will do one of these movements in the future anyway. But it looks like it's a pretty possible thing to do, and then we'll have a repeating alarm. Good morning, probably the only one in the world ever to exist, ever, and will ever exist. The other thing I've done is I have sort of forcibly tapped out these little holes in there so I can screw this bell on there, because these were just round holes without any thread in them, so I literally just forced the screws into there and it worked just fine. So wish me luck on this project, and I shall update you with a video probably of the movement after I've sort of modified it and repaired it. So thanks for watching. Make sure you are subscribed, because if you aren't, you might miss out on something.